Well, hello. I'm here with Congressman Jim Renacci, who is running for re-election here, and he's right here from Medina County. We talk a little bit about his background, and then we'll get a chance to meet him and learn more about his what he would plan to do should he get re-elected and what he would do in Washington. Since taking office, Jim Renacci has sought to work with Republicans and Democrats alike, using his business experience to help get America's economy moving again. Congressman Renacci believes Washington must place progress over politics and work together to lessen regulations, balance the budget, and reform the tax code to create the right environment for job creation. So Jim Renacci, welcome.
Yeah,
nice to talk to you, Congressman. Let's talk a little bit about what you've been doing and what your plans would be for the future should you get reelected. So let's start out a little more basic. For the viewers at home, tell us about what the role of the congressman is in Washington. You know, what do you do in a typical day, typical week, and so on?
Well, it's interesting. Washington, of course, I was a businessman for 28 years, so coming to Washington's been a real change of pace. You start early in the morning, you're working with constituents, you're having hearings, you're having meetings. You usually go late into the evening with votes. But it's been a great honor to represent the people of the 16th District and have an opportunity to really listen to them and then take their views, plus use my background and experience to really try and change things in Washington, which has been my goal for the last 5.5 years. It's interesting that I've already been there 5.5 years, but it really does take the time for you really to gain the respect of the other members. You can't just walk down there and say, I'm Jim Renacci and you got to start listening to me.
Right.
First off, it takes time, and I've been proud to say that I've been able to work with both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. We have the bipartisan breakfast once a week where we work and come up with ideas, and we've really been able to get some things accomplished over the last 5.5 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it takes time to get kind of your network put together and know how things get done there and how they get done and so forth.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us a bit about why you're running again. You know, why do you want to continue to do what you're doing?
Well, it's interesting. I started there wanting to make a difference, and I'm going to continue to push to make a difference, whether it comes to the overregulations that Washington has. One of the reasons I ran for Congress is because my Chevy dealership was taken away from me by what I believe Washington, and that drove my frustration to go there. I believe what Washington is too involved in our life. We need to get them to pull back. I also believe that we need to make sure that we reform our tax code, and I've been working diligently over the last few years to get that done. In fact, I have my own tax plan now that was developed over the last 1.5 years, and then the idea of fiscal restraint. I mean, the other big thing that I've been working on for the last few years is trying to get a balance sheet of the federal government. How do you know where we're going if you don't know where you're at? And it's been a big issue for me. I just dropped a piece of legislation, bipartisan, that require the Comptroller General to come before the House and the Senate on an annual basis and give us the fiscal state of the nation, which I think is important. You have to know where you're at fiscally before you can move forward.
Okay, very good. Wanted to talk a little bit about what you would like to do specifically when you get there, and you've already kind of planted a few seeds. Can you expand on some of the things about the tax code, for instance, and getting the budget in order? Can you build on that a little bit?
Yeah, two things that have been very frustrating for me. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee, which is one of the most powerful committees in Washington. I'm also on the Budget Committee, which is also another powerful committee in Washington. What I've learned is since 1974, we have a budget and a budget act that we've never followed. We've never followed. We pass budgets and then we don't follow them. And it's frustrating. Why would you continue to pass budgets without following them? One of the things I've done this past year is introduce bipartisan legislation that says when we pass a budget, if anybody wants to change the budget or violate the budget, they have to come before the House and the Senate and explain why they're violating the budget. And I want to continue to make sure we have budget reforms that not only put a budget in place, but make sure we follow that budget, something we haven't done since 1974.
Make it actually meaningful.
Absolutely, yeah. Make it meaningful. The other thing is tax reform. We have the highest tax rate in the world, and the corporate tax rate. So we have businesses that are leaving our country, not because they don't want to be here, because we have good employment here, we have good technology here. The problem is we have a 35% tax rate, and you can go to Ireland and have a tax rate of 13%.
Right.
So why would companies stay here if they can move when they could save close to 20% by leaving? We have to be able to become more competitive. What's really interesting is only 10% of our revenues are in the federal treasury is driven from corporations. And yet we focus on that corporate rate and we say, oh, we've got to go after those big bad businesses. The truth of it is that the 10% that we collect, we then have a whole slew of IRS agents that we're spending a whole lot of money on trying to make sure that the 10% is even accurate. In the end, businesses don't pay corporate income tax. They pass it on to their consumers as part of the cost of the product.
Right, because they still have to make a profit and they need to pass along all their costs.
Absolutely. So it's frustrating that we spend so much time on that, and that's one of the reasons that I spent the last year now developing my own tax plan that we're laying out and pushing, and we're going to continue to push. But when I do something, Larry, I do it this way. I come up with a plan, I lay it out, and then I go talk to my constituents, which I've been doing for the last few months.
Right. And that's been in the news a lot about international mergers where it's tax incented to put your headquarters in a country in Europe, Ireland, or what have you, just because the U.S. taxes are so high on corporations.
Absolutely. And if you try and stop companies from leaving, here's the first thing. Once you try and stop them, they figure out a way to get out, and then you'll never get a company to come in.
Right.
So this idea of just putting up this tax wall and saying, we're going to stop you from leaving. Well, number one, once you do that, you're never going to get anybody to come in because they're going to say, wait a minute, I'm not going in someplace I can't get out of.
Right.
And then secondly, the corporations that are here, they'll figure out ways out. What we have to do is become more competitive. We have to make it so it's competitive to put business here in this country because our issues are jobs and the economy and national security. Those are the big issues in the district. Those are the big issues in the country. We have to figure out a way to make the United States the most competitive place in the world to do business.
Very good. Okay. What kind of skills and expertise do you bring to this position? I know that you've already been in it for, as you said, 5.5 years, but tell them a little bit more about your background that you feel gave you the skills you need in Washington.
Sure. Well, again, I'm not a career politician. I'm a career businessman. I went to Washington because of my frustration with Washington and their overregulation, overreach. So what I take to Washington is a business skill set. I've created over 1,500 jobs. I've employed 3,000 people. I've operated over 60 businesses successfully throughout the state of Ohio. My goal is to take that background to Washington. The biggest issue in Washington is there's so many people down there that are representatives of their district but don't have the background and the skill set many times to understand how we create jobs, how we move the economy forward.
Right. They don't see it the way the private sector would, which is where most of the jobs are created, obviously.
Absolutely.
What makes your leadership in this position different from the other candidate who's running for the same elected position?
Well, I don't know much about the candidate running against me. What I do know is that I bring a business background and a business mindset. I bring a mindset of jobs and moving the economy and growing it. I don't believe my opponent has any of that background or experience. I also believe I bring this basis of tax reform, which is so important.
Right.
I mean, I'm still a CPA. I've spent the last 30 years as a CPA, so that is a mindset that's much different than my opponent. But I really don't know his background or experience much.
Okay. Polls show that some voters think government doesn't work, and you've actually touched on this a bit already when you talked about bipartisanship and so forth. But what would you do to fix some of the underlying systems and that people perceive as being broken?
Yeah, well, look, government doesn't work in Washington, and the reason it doesn't is politics trump policy. Politics become the overriding fact. And what I've tried to do in the 5.5 years, and I think I've done it very successfully, is I've started working with the other side the first month or so I got there. Today I have a weekly bipartisan breakfast. We have 23 Republicans, 13 Republicans, 13 Democrats, 26 members of the group. We get together every week, talk about ways we can move business, things forward. We've passed a number of pieces of legislation out of the House and the Senate, and some were even signed by the President that were initiated out of that breakfast, which I think is important. I wish we could take the 435 members and put them in the mindset of the 13 Republicans and 13 Democrats that are working together.
Right, to be able to get more things done.
Yeah.
That's a good example. Besides what you mentioned so far, are there other priorities you would try to establish and pursue in the coming term should you be reelected? You talked about the tax reform and budget and so forth. Are there other things you wanted to mention for the upcoming term?
Sure. Well, I think the other big thing is regulations. We are over-regulated. The federal government continues to put more and more regulations. And one of the other things, Larry, it's important, is we don't eliminate the regulations that are already out there. So the federal government just adds and adds and adds more and more layers
Right.
of regulation.
Right.
And what we really need to do is start looking at regulations and deciding which of those are hurting the economy, which of those are stopping the economy from growing. You know, we have the REINS Act, which is another important act. It says if any regulation hurts the economy by more than $100 million, it has to come before Congress. I think that's so important. It's the elected officials that should be making these decisions, not bureaucrats in Washington. And until we are able to do that, control the regulations, we're going to continue to have these over-regulations from the administration.
Right.
And most people say to me, well, you know, you're Congress, you should be able to stop that. Think about this, and we all go back to our civics classes. It takes 218 votes in the House, 60 votes in the Senate, and then the president has to sign off on everything we do.
Right.
So if the president's putting out a bad regulation, and we say, hey, that's bad, and we get 218 votes in the House and 60 votes in the Senate, he just vetoes it. So now we need 290 and 66, which is very difficult.
Right.
Which is why we have to be able to, first off, work together, and then decide what's working, what's not working. But our number one goal should be the people's goal, which is jobs in the economy and
Right.
making sure national security. Those are the issues that Americans are concerned about. And those aren't Republican and Democrat issues.
Right.
Those are American issues.
Yeah, and as a business owner, I can relate to the regulation issues, and so many of the agencies creating rules like the NLRB and so forth, coming up with more and more rules that, like you said, they just keep heaped on to the ones that were already there, with nothing ever going away. So.
Well, and I can give you an example. We had a hospital bill where they were coming out with a star rating system. I initiated a letter with a Democratic colleague. 226 members signed that letter, Republicans and Democrats. And yet the administration still put out that star rating, even though the 226 members said, do not put this out, delay it for a year, let's make sure we know the methodology before you do this. And the administration just ignored it, which just shows you how Washington is broken.
Right.
Here's 226 members of the House and the Senate saying stop, and yet the administration still went forward.
Right. Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like our viewers to know that we didn't have a chance to cover during the interview today?
Well, Larry, like I tell everybody, it's an honor for me to represent the 16th district. It's really been an honor for me to listen and meet with people throughout the district, understand their concerns, understand their issues, and in the end, it's great that I can bring the background that I have and represent the people of the 16th district. And I'm very proud and honored to be able to do that, and I look forward to serving those individuals again in the next 2 years, and I would appreciate their vote.
Well, on behalf of the Medina Chamber of Commerce, Congressman Jim Renacci, I want to thank you for coming out and taking some time to talk to our viewers and talk about the upcoming election, and I wish you luck going forward as the election
Thank you
happens.
very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Keith Mundy was born in Akron, raised in Summit County, and attended Archbishop Hoban High School, Hudson High School, and the University of Akron, where he studied education. While attending the University of Akron, he served on Student Senate and was advertising manager and campus editor of the student newspaper, The Book to Light. He and his wife Agnes have been together for 40 years and married for 38. Agnes recently retired from Parma City Schools, where they have lived for over 30 years. They have 2 children, Ryan, who passed 5 years ago, who they deeply miss, and Elizabeth, who is married with 4 children. Keith enjoyed coaching basketball, baseball, and softball for over 30 years. He was the baseball commissioner for the western region of the CYO, Cleveland Diocese. He was also the basketball site director. For the past 16 years, Keith has owned a legal document research and delivery business, doing work for over 17 law firms. He published the Cleveland NLRB newsletter daily and was appointed by the county clerks to serve legal paper. He has been said that Keith was one of the people that started the Bernie Sanders movement in Ohio. Good morning.
How are we doing today?
Very good. For the viewers at home, can you start by describing what role of the congressman is?
Well, the role of the congressman is the voice of the people. It's that simple. You don't have to go, it's what the people need. and what they're saying to the congressman, and that's what he should be doing.
Very good.
You know.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about why you are running?
Well, the reason why I'm running is because, you know, Bernie Sanders, I saw what was happening with America, and I saw that we needed change. Right now we have a Congress that's an obstructionist towards our president. We're not getting anything done in Congress. What we saw with Bernie Sanders was a whole new feel and new ideas. And I got pulled into that, and next thing I knew, I was running for Congress. Shocked me more than anybody because this wasn't on my bucket list. What I had planned to do was, when my wife was retiring, and of course my daughter just had triplets, which that's the four grandchildren, and we've been up back and forth to New York visiting with the kids. I had no intentions of running, but nobody would step up and run against the person who is now our congressman in the 16th district, who, by the way, has done very little for us, and a whole bunch for himself, in as much as he is the rich guy, and he has passed bills that have cut his taxes.
Very good. What specific skills or expertise do you bring to this elected position?
Well, I'm pretty good at management, pretty good at finding out the answers. All the legal research that I do is for labor law. I have to go to many courts to search out information. I'm good at that. As far as organization, my coaching skills over the years, and bringing up assistant coaches to make them full-time coaches. And then also the Bernie movement, bringing together all these people. I mean, it started out with 3. When we got done, it was 61 on our central committee, and over 100,000 people statewide volunteering for Bernie. That's pretty exciting, and it's also shows my management skills, which I was shocked also, to be honest with you. I always knew that I could manage a small group of people and a team. I had no idea that team was going to get so large. As far as for Congress, like I said, I can find the information, I can find the answers, I can get it done.
Very good. That's a lot of people very quickly, too.
It was. Overnight, we had 38 groups in the state of Ohio. The first group I spoke to was 3,000 people in Columbus. Wow. I had never, usually it was like to parents and players. That was the largest group of people I ever got to speak to. All of a sudden, I was speaking to thousands of people. Right. Later that day, I went and spoke in Kentucky for Bernie Sanders. Again, we had thousands of people. Yes, overnight my life changed. You know, it's like in life you have segments, and I look at them as little lives. You know, you have that time you're going to college. That's a life. You know, you're married and you're raising kids and you're coaching, and you know those are. Then all of a sudden you're at the end. You know, I'm getting near the end. You know, I'm going to be 67 this year. You kind of take all that you've learned in your whole life, and all of a sudden, I feel that I'm ready to be a congressman. Now apply it. You know, right. And apply everything that I've learned my whole life.
Very good.
Like I said, I never thought I'd be here. This was the last thing on my list, was to run for office. Right. And it's also one of the toughest things you have to do. That is. Running for office is not only time-consuming, but very tiring. You know, you're constantly having to keep up with all the different obligations. Sometimes seven places you have to be in 6 counties in one day.
That's a lot of moving around.
It is.
Very good. Polls show that most voters don't think government works. What would you do to fix the underlying structures and systems that seem to be broken?
Well, the first thing that I would do that's really broken is the way we vote. Right now we have a little over 50% of the people that are registered to vote. Another 50% roughly that are not, that don't participate at all. From that, we're lucky to get 35 to 50% of the people that are registered to vote. So we're looking at about 20% to 25% of the people that actually have a say in how we do things day to day. We need to change this by bringing back the Voting Rights Act, and also adding to that how we do vote. I think that every person that's 17 and a half should be registered automatically. Of course, the president just came out and said that, and there are other people in the Democratic Party who are also for this. But we want to take it. I want to take it one step further. I think we need to all vote by mail. The biggest problem we have is voter suppression, and it happens in little ways. We've seen it over the years in Ohio where polling, where like on a campus of one campus there was only one place that you could vote. And other places where they run out of ballots. You know, just all, and then waiting these long lines. You know, we have it on a Tuesday when we all have to go to work. A lot of people rush in the morning to vote, either that or they go at night. And during the day it's like empty, because I've gone in the middle of the day and there's nobody there. Sure. What we need to do is vote by mail. If we have 30 days to fill out the form, to check the issues, to look the people, to check out the people that we're going to vote for, you know, I think that this would be a better way of voting. I really do. You have to fix the small problems first before you fix the big ones. Sure. And you're right. Most Americans look at Congress and say they're not accomplishing anything, and that's true. That we've had an obstruction. They've been obstructionist both in the Senate and in Congress against this president. No matter who the president is, if you're elected to Congress, it's your responsibility to work with that person. You work with that person. You're there for the people, not for yourself or your party. Mm-hmm. Once you're elected, the party has to kind of be set aside, and you have to be an American. And that's the problem with most people in Congress. They stick to the party line, and this, we have to end that.
Lose sight of the people.
You do lose sight of the people. The people are left behind. As a matter of fact, one thing that I've learned going around talking to people is nobody even knows who their congressman is. And that could be for a lot of reasons, because my opponent probably just doesn't get out there much. He hides. You know, you never see him out there speaking publicly. The first time I saw a lot of him was during the Republican National Convention, and they showcased him on every TV show, which was good for him. I think that we need to, like I said, the voting is the bottom line. You know, it's the most important thing that we do is to vote. If we don't vote, then we have an hypocrisy. We call it democracy, and that's what we're living in now. Go ahead.
Very good. What makes your leadership in this position different from other candidates, and why?
Well, just in how we put together the Bernie Sanders movement, I was always looking for leaders. I was always looking for people that were could do things better than I could. That's the mark of a good leader, is to find people and put them around you that are going to do the job better than, you know, they're going to supplement you. In other words, your needs. You know, if we're working on a bill, and one of the bills that I want to put out immediately is the vote by mail, and also registering all the kids at 17 and a half automatically. I mean, we are all born pretty much with Social Security numbers. You know, we're already Americans. Right. We should have that right to vote. It shouldn't be suppressed. But, you know, it's finding people, and that's in business also, that are better than you at certain things, and making sure that they're around you.
They're in the right place.
Exactly.
They're in the right seat. Very good. What are a few examples of priorities you would pursue in the office to make government business friendly?
That's an interesting, business friendly. Right now, small business is very important. Big business, we always take care of big business. I don't understand why. They have plenty of money. They should be able to take care of themselves. It's the small businessman that needs to be helped. One of the things we need to do, and I'm going to go right to healthcare here, and that is that we need to have a one-payer system. One-payer system, we take the greed capitalists, we take the greed insurance companies out of play. It's going to make our insurance premiums go down. It's going to help small business. It will stimulate small business. That'll be one of the problems that they have right now is healthcare. We all have problems with healthcare because of its cost. We have problems with the cost of medications also. But no, as far as small business goes, I understand. We also need to change the tax code to make it easier for businesses to file taxes. We spend more time now trying to maintain and stay current with our taxes and with the rules and quarterly, depending on how you do it, monthly or quarterly. it's tough on a small business. It costs a small business more to take care of their taxes than a large corporation, because the large corporation, they got plenty of money
to do it.
Yeah, they got plenty of money. You know.
Very good. What else would you like the viewers to know about you?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, I'm an honest person. I've been in business, and in the legal business, you have to be pretty honest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're dealing with a lot. I dealt with a lot of law firms over the years. Right now, I'm semi-retired. I only have one client, one law firm, but we have 32 offices nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be that kind of person. I have to be that kind of person who looks at something without making a judgment. I have to be able to look at things and go, okay, that's the way it is. It's not my responsibility to make the judgment, it's just to gather the facts. That's who I am.
Perform the research.
You do the research, you do the investigative work. There's
Mm-hmm.
also investigative work involved. And you have to make sure that you're fair. Fairness is the key. Fairness is the key
Very good.
in everything.
Okay. That's all I have.
That's it? We're
That's
done
it.
for the day?
That's it.
20 minutes that fast? Wow. Thank you very much. It was really a good time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank
You
you
know?
for the opportunity. Thanks for coming down.
Sure.
Yeah. Very good.